Far away in their village, life continued. The mango tree still stood strong. Children still played beneath it. The wind still passed through its leaves. But the three boys who once sat there, dreaming of a better life, were gone. Two were behind bars. One was buried in the ground. And their story became a lesson, a reminder that sometimes the path that looks like hope can lead to destruction. In their lives, for a brief moment, everything felt unreal. This was what they came for: money, a better life. But then, something went wrong. A man tried to run. Maybe he wanted to escape. Maybe he wanted to call for help. Emeka shouted at him to stop, but the man kept running. Then came the sound that changed everything. A gunshot. The man fell. Silence followed. The boys froze. Sadiq's hands began to shake uncontrollably. Emeka stared at his gun in disbelief. He hadn't meant to pull the trigger, but it had happened. Blood spread across the floor, and just like that, they crossed a line they could never return from. "Let's go," Tunde shouted. They grabbed the money and ran out of the bank, back into the car, back into a life they didn't choose, but were now part of. Inside the car, no one spoke at first. Then Sadiq broke down. "We killed someone," he said, his voice breaking. Emeka couldn't even respond. Tunde tried to stay strong, but his eyes showed fear. Uncle Kunle, however, remained calm. "You did well," he said. Those words felt wrong. Everything about this felt wrong. But there was no turning back anymore. Days turned into weeks. One robbery became 2, then 3. Each time it became easier, not because they wanted it to, but because something inside them was slowly dying. They spoke less, they smiled less, they became shadows of who they once were. But at night, the memories returned, the faces of the people, the fear, the blood. One night, they sat together in silence. Emeka finally spoke. "I see his face every time I close my eyes." Sadiq nodded slowly. "Me too." Tunde looked at both of them. "We can't keep living like this," he said. Before they could say anything more, a phone rang. Uncle Conley picked it up. His expression changed slightly. "Police," he said. Those single words brought fear back instantly. Everything that followed happened fast. Sirens, running, shouting. They were escaping with another bag of money when the police caught up with them. The sound of gunshots filled the air. And then, Tunde was hit. He stopped moving, then slowly fell to the ground. Sadiq screamed his name. Emeka shouted in anger, but it was too late. Tunde, the boy who once believed in a better future, was gone. His last words were weak, but clear. "Don't stop." Then silence. The 2 remaining boys stood there for a moment, broken. Then the sound of sirens forced them to move. They picked up the money and ran, leaving behind their friend, their brother, their past. Now there were only 2 of them, and the path they were on was about to become even darker. The rain fell quietly that night. Inside a small, dimly lit room somewhere in Lagos, Emeka and Sadiq sat on the cold floor, their backs against the wall. Between them lay a heavy bag filled with money, the same money they had risked their lives to steal. But there was no joy, no excitement, only silence. Tunde was gone, and the weight of that truth sat heavily on their hearts. Sadiq stared at the ground, his voice weak. "Tunde is gone." Emeka didn't respond immediately. His eyes were empty, fixed on nothing. Finally he spoke. "We left him there." The rain grew louder. Sadiq shook his head slowly. "We had no choice." But Emeka turned sharply, anger rising inside him. "There is always a choice." Silence followed. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind filled with regret. After a long pause, Sadiq spoke again. "What do we do now?" That question hung in the air, because deep down they both knew the answer. If they went back to Uncle Kunle, Nothing would change. He would send them again. Another robbery, another crime, another death. Emeka looked at the bag of money, then back at Sadiq. If we go back, he said slowly, we will die. Sadiq swallowed hard. What if we don't go back? Emeka's eyes narrowed. You mean we run? Sadiq nodded. We take the money and disappear. It was a dangerous idea, but it was also the only chance they had. He used us, Sadiq added quietly. He never cared. Emeka clenched his fist, and Tunde died because of him. That settled it. They were not going back, but far away. Uncle Kunle had already found out. Back at his house, the air was tense. One of his men stood before him, nervous. They didn't return, boss, the man said. Uncle Kunle stood still for a moment. Then he asked one question. How much did they take? When he got his answer, his face changed, not with anger, but something colder, a quiet, dangerous calm. They ran, he said. Then slowly a smile appeared on his face, not a normal smile, a deadly one. Then we hunt them. The next morning, Emeka and Sadiq packed what little they had. They knew they had to leave quickly. Every second mattered, but before they could escape, there was a knock on the door. Open up! Both of them froze. Their hearts began to race. They found us, Sadiq whispered. Without wasting time, Emeka grabbed the bag. Back door, he said. They ran. Outside, the streets were already alive. People moved around, unaware of the danger unfolding. Then the sound came. Gunshots. The chase had begun. They ran through narrow streets, pushing past people, turning corners without looking back. Behind them, armed men followed. Run! Emeka shouted. I'm trying, Sadiq replied, fear in his voice. Bullets flew past them. Cars stopped suddenly. People screamed and scattered. The city that once looked like hope had now become a trap. They kept running until suddenly they reached a dead end. Sadiq's face went pale. No! No! Before they could turn back, the men surrounded them. Then a car pulled up. The door opened, and Uncle Conley stepped out. Calm, collected, dangerous. You disappointed me, he said. Emeka stepped forward, anger burning inside him. You killed Tunde! Uncle Kunle's face did not change. He was weak. Those words hit hard. We are not coming back, Sadiq shouted. Uncle Kunle laughed softly. A cold, empty laugh. You think you have a choice? He stepped closer. Drop the bag. Neither of them moved. I said, drop it. But this time, something was different. For the first time since the ritual, they resisted. No, Emeka said firmly. There was a pause. Even Uncle Conley seemed surprised. Then everything exploded. Gunshots filled the air. Chaos returned. Emeka and Sadiq dropped to the ground, grabbing their weapons. They fired back. People ran for safety. Cars crashed into each other. The sound of fear echoed everywhere. Sadiq struggled to keep up. I can't see, he shouted. Just shoot, Emeka replied. One man fell, then another. But suddenly, a gunshot hit Sadiq. He screamed in pain and fell to the ground. My leg! Blood spread quickly. He tried to stand, but couldn't. Emeka rushed to him. Sadiq! I can't move, Sadiq cried. Uncle Kunle stepped forward again, confident. This ends now. Emeka looked up. His face filled with anger, pain, and everything he had lost. This is for Tunde, he said. He raised his gun and fired. The bullet hit its target. Uncle Kunle stopped, looked down, then slowly fell. Silence. The fight was over, but not the story. In the distance, sirens grew louder. Police were coming. Sadiq tried to speak. We have to go. But he couldn't move. Emeka looked around. There was no escape. One by one, police vehicles surrounded them. Drop your weapons, a voice commanded. The two boys looked at each other, tired, broken, finished. Slowly, they dropped their guns. The fight was over. As the police placed handcuffs on their wrists, Sadiq's voice shook. "This is the end." Emeka didn't argue. He just nodded. They had wanted a better life, but they had taken the wrong path. And now, there was no going back. The courtroom was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that brings peace, but the kind that carries weight, fear, and final decisions. People filled the room, sitting close together, whispering softly. Some came out of curiosity. Others came because of the lives that had been lost. At the center of it all stood Emeka and Sadiq, handcuffed, worn out, changed. Sadiq leaned slightly on a crutch, his injured legs still weak. His face looked older than his age, as if the pain he had gone through had taken years from his life. Emeka stood beside him, silent and still. His eyes no longer carried anger, only regret. This was not how their story was supposed to end. The judge entered, and everyone rose. Then came the moment that would decide the rest of their lives. Their crimes were read out one by one. Armed robbery, violence, loss of innocent lives. Each word felt heavy. Each word reminded them of how far they had fallen. As they stood there listening, memories began to flood their minds. The village, the mango tree, their dreams, Tunde. When the judge asked if they had anything to say, the room fell completely silent. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Emeka took a step forward. He did not try to deny anything. He did not try to defend himself. He simply told the truth. He spoke about where they came from, about the struggles they faced, about how they only wanted a better life. Then Sadiq spoke. His voice shook, and tears rolled down his face. He admitted their mistakes. He admitted their choices. And he spoke about the pain they now carried every day. They did not ask for freedom, because deep down, they knew they did not deserve it. The judge listened carefully. Then, after a long pause, he spoke. The law, he said, must stand for everything they had done, for the lives that had been lost, for the pain they had caused. They were sentenced to life imprisonment. The words echoed in the room, final, unchangeable. Sadiq broke down immediately. His strength gave way and he cried openly. Emeka closed his eyes, not in anger, not in fear, but in acceptance. It was over. Days later, they stood in front of the prison gates, tall, cold, unforgiving. As the gates opened, a loud metallic sound filled the air. It was the sound of a new life beginning, a life they never wanted. They walked inside slowly. Each step felt heavy. Each step took them further away from the world they once knew. When the gates closed behind them, the sound echoed deeply. It felt like the final door to their freedom had been shut forever. Inside their small prison cell, everything was simple. 2 beds, bare walls, silence. For a long time, neither of them spoke. They just sat there, thinking, remembering, regretting. Finally, Sadiq broke the silence. He asked a simple question. Do you remember the mango tree? Emeka looked up slowly. Of course he remembered. That was where everything began. They began to talk about the past, about their dreams, about how they believed Lagos would change their lives for the better. But instead, it changed everything for the worse. What went wrong? Sadiq asked. Emeka thought for a moment before answering. We were desperate, he said. They had wanted success so badly that they ignored the warning signs. They trusted the wrong person. They followed a path that promised quick results without thinking about the consequences. And in the end, they paid the price. Days turned into months. Months turned into years. Prison life changed them, not just physically, but inside. They became quieter, more thoughtful, less angry. The pain never left them, But slowly, they began to understand it. One evening, as the sun set behind the prison walls, they sat together in the yard, watching the sky. Sadiq asked another question. If you could go back, what would you change? Emeka didn't answer immediately, but when he did, his voice was calm. I would choose peace, he said, not quick money. Sadiq nodded. I would listen to my mother, he said softly. They both knew something important now, something they wished they had known before. Not every opportunity is good. Not every path leads to success, and not every promise should be trusted. That night, back in their cell, they lay quietly on their beds. The room was dark, still. Sadiq spoke softly. Do you think God will forgive us? Emeka stared at the ceiling. He didn't have a clear answer, but he spoke from his heart. I don't know, he said, but we must try to become better, even here. There was silence again, but this time it felt different. Not empty, but reflective. Far away in their village, life continued. The mango tree still stood strong. Children still played beneath it. The wind still passed through its leaves. But the three boys who once sat there, dreaming of a better life, were gone. Two were behind bars. One was buried in the ground. And their story became a lesson, a reminder that sometimes the path that looks like hope can lead to destruction.